There we go. So can you start out by just introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about the setting that you're working with and the population you have?
Okay. So my name's Wendy Einhorn, and I live in Huntington Beach, California, which I'm lucky at this point with weather being the way it is. I've been in the field for 34 years, and I've been in a variety of settings, almost every setting that we can as speech pathologists be in. Right now, and for the past 14 years, I've been in a high school, in a comprehensive high school with just a regular high school with students primarily LD, language impaired, and autistic, high functioning.
Great. So how did you hear about the Language Therapy Advance program?
I think I might have heard about it through a Facebook group.
Okay.
Through a Facebook group where, however you marketed it, it made me feel like you were marketing it to me, which was very awesome, and I'm sure a lot of people felt the same way.
Yeah.
So it sounded like right up my alley, and so that's how I became involved.
Great. So what you mentioned, the way that it was presented sounded like it would be good for your situation. Do you remember what specific things about the way it was presented helped you to figure out if it was for you?
Yeah. Well, what I liked about all of the interactions and the information is that it's down to earth. It's not on some ivory tower. So even after 34 years, I felt comfortable enough. It spoke to me that I don't have all the answers, and that there's still, it's okay for me to continue to keep learning.
Yeah.
And that this might be something that will help me keep polishing my skills, and something that I've always needed, but have been you get kind of caught up and then too afraid to admit areas that you still struggle with.
Yeah, I know that's language seems to be it's a big area. I guess that's for lack of a better way to put it. There's a lot involved with it.
Right.
A lot to understand.
And the thing that's also really hard about it that I'm realizing with the situation I'm in now is that communicating it in a way that someone that's not a speech pathologist can really kind of understand. That's hard.
Yeah, and that's a huge part of our job for them to understand the terminology. So, yeah, that's interesting. So, when you started the program, what specific things were you struggling with?
Well, I think I mentioned the grammar, and I did buy that book. I have to admit that I went through volume 1, took notes, did everything. I started volume 2, and then I kind of had to put that on the back burner. So that's where I'm at. But where challenges, I think it's a lot of information.
Yeah.
The good news is that you keep reiterating that it's okay for us to listen to future interactions and the Thursdays that you've been interacting with us, which gives me a feeling that this hasn't been a waste, that once I have more time again, I can then delve into it again and have access to. I feel like you're really accessible.
Okay. Yeah, great. That's good feedback for me. I think you make a good point that sometimes we have other things that come up in our lives that take us away from a certain area because we have to deal with so many different things, and that you want to be able to put it on hold and come back to it when you're ready. So
I know it's there.
Yeah.
And when I get back to seeing all of my groups, hopefully this next week, and I can jump right back in it and fumble through and figure out and look back at the videos and jump on Facebook. So that's good.
Yeah. I think that part of it is just the accessibility of, it will be there for you. We'll be here for you when you're ready, and the live Q&As will still be going on. We'll have more of them, and that you can always watch the replays.
Which is helpful.
So you mentioned that grammar was something that was hard as far as in therapy. So can you talk a little bit more about that? So some of the specific things that were hard that you were looking to solve when you decided to join, as far as what you were struggling with or working on in therapy with your students.
It's hard for me in the moment
Yeah.
to give the terminology and explanation to the students that are language impaired at their level, because I don't have that good of a grasp of adverbs, verbs. You know, I mean, I understand that, but when a kid will say, "What's the difference between da 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 and da da da?" I'm like, I know, but in the moment, it's just not right off the top of my, tip of my tongue.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a great point, that sometimes we know, but we're so good at using the rules or using language that we take it for granted and don't always know how to explain it.
The other thing I wanted to say is that in my district, and especially the director, they don't feel like grammar is anything that no one works on grammar, allegedly.
That's interesting.
They say that's not going to help. That ship has sailed, they'll use spell check, but I agree that the more, that's not true.
Yeah.
So I just listen and then just do what I do.
Yeah. I think that's a good way to handle it. I mean, the first thing you can do about it is just help the students that you're working with. And there's actually quite a bit of research that shows that working on morphology and grammar and syntax can really impact reading. So that's huge, especially for the kids that aren't catching on to it. And maybe some of the higher kids don't need it, but that's why we're here.
Higher kids may not need the breakdown of all of that, but the sentence frames, and especially with my kids on the spectrum, that has really helped, because they have a lot of internal disorganization. Formulating. So the sentence
aspect.
So I've seen how it could work with older kids that are higher functioning.
Yeah. So how to apply the strategies to students who are a little bit higher, more advanced, but still need assistance.
Yes, and may have needs as a result of other things besides true language delays, but more executive functioning piece of it.
Yeah.
That don't know how to formulate their thoughts. Kind of gives them I don't know, I've used it with the sentence frames with some of the 9th grade kids that I have that are really have a lot to say, but they don't know how to say it in a cohesive way. And so just showing them that little frame and plugging it in and kind of practicing that, it's a lot, the light goes on for some reason.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that made sense.
Yeah, it does. So you're saying some of the strategies that we talk about in the program with explicitly teaching syntax have helped some of your students organize and get longer sentences.
And with the right details and the right, not repeating the word or not saying and stuff. So having
so they're being more specific with the language that they're using. Yeah, great. So that actually somewhat answered the next question that I had, which was, what results have you seen from using some of the strategies in the program? And I think you somewhat answered that, but did you have anything else that you wanted to add as far as some specific results you've seen?
As far as like progress results, maybe not so much, but the results that the students have reflected back to me when I do use some of the strategies that I've learned they get it in a lot quicker amount of time. They don't seem as frustrated as other ways that I've presented vocabulary or attempted to do language therapy with them. And so it seems less frustrating for them.
Yeah, that's huge. So do you find that they're a little bit more motivated, or that they have a different attitude because the frustration has gone down?
I am lucky because the kids that I work with, knock on wood, they seem engaged for the most part. And that's one of the positives there's a lot of positives with my job, but I have a great group of kids, and even in the high school setting, they understand. I try and, so they understand why they're there. They know what they need to work on. Ninth graders, they're immature still. And so, but for lack of it, they'll do whatever I want them to do. So they don't seem not motivated.
Yeah.
You don't have to do a lot of games and whistles and stuff.
Mm-hmm. That's great. Yeah. Those type of students are perfectly primed for that type of task where you can just start working on the skills and
because they want to know why that it's benefiting them when they're coming out of class to you. Mm-hmm. They don't want to come, and they can verbalize that if they don't feel like they're getting anything out of it. Mm-hmm. So you can kind of have that exchange that you can't have with the smaller kids.
Right. Yeah. When they're younger, they don't quite realize, or they don't they like coming out. They don't notice that it's different.
Right. It's harder in high school.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's an interesting perspective. So let's see, my next question for you was, would you recommend this program to someone else in a setting similar to yours? And why?
I've already done that. Yes.
Mm-hmm. And great. Thank you. I appreciate that.
I've talked to my colleagues, my department, the special ed department, about what I'm learning and what I'm hoping to implement some of the strategies next year and going into the classroom.
Oh, that's awesome.
I met with the lead speech pathologist. She's the autism specialist on Thursday. And I think we have a lot of new speech pathologists. Well, we only have 7 in our district, and we are very rich with speech therapists. There's 2 at most schools, except for my school, which is small. Mm-hmm. So I want to present the curriculum and show them how they can be involved in it at one of our speech meetings.
That's awesome. I appreciate that.
Well, it's helpful.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that it's interesting how you can apply it to different settings as well, and have especially when you have a big department like that, and you can share your ideas and all get on the same page. So, what would you say if somebody was on the fence about whether or not to join the program? What would you tell them?
Well, in my experience, and especially working with newer clinicians. Mm-hmm. They want some sort of a guide to follow. And that's always been a challenge when mentoring to come up with. But I think that for the newer clinician, I think it's a positive would be that it gives you a framework that you can pull from, so that you don't feel like you're just grabbing from every piece. And so you're learning so many new things as a newer clinician. And I think experienced clinicians as well would benefit it if they're honest enough that they don't know everything. Yeah. Because I think that happens sometimes. But I think it's a really good framework, condensed like boundaries that you can actually pull from and feel like you're impacting. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, thank you for all that feedback and your comments about that.